Hi, everyone. I am so happy to bring you Shana Pereira, and she has a story that will blow your mind. Talk about we're recording this around Thanksgiving, but this is going to be a story that you share forever because it's such a miracle. So, Shana, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I know this isn't something you normally do. That's another thing. But I sure appreciate you coming on and telling us your miracle and near-death experience.
Thank you so much, Deborah, for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
Pleasure is completely mine. So, as I say with all the other shows, tell us everything, leave nothing out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I found out that my kidneys were failing on Christmas Eve 2015. And that was the first time that I had felt sick. And it was the first time that I realized that anything was wrong. And at the time, the doctor said to me, "What do you do?" And I said, I am in advertising. And he said, "Did your back hurt?" And I said, "Yes, of course it does. I'm in advertising." And he said, "What about tiredness? Were you tired?" And I was like, "Yes, I was tired. I'm in advertising. Everybody's tired. This is what we do." And so I had no real connection to the fact that my kidneys were failing. So it came out of the blue completely. I came back to the US and I was on dialysis for 4 years until we actually found a living donor, a beautiful lady. Her name is Katie, and she's from Virginia. And she's just the most amazing, selfless person. And she had said she would give me her kidney. And so her and I went through the testing together. She actually heard about my story on a podcast, funny enough. And that's how we met. And we went through all the testing together. And by the time she was approved, it was the summer of 2020. And I'm sure that everybody remembers the summer of 2020, we were in lockdown. The kidney evaluation for her took longer because we were in COVID, and kidney transplants are deemed in the US as elective, which meant that they were on hold. So as you can imagine, there's a whole nother podcast that I could give just on why kidney transplants shouldn't be elective. But at the moment they are. And so everything was halted and took extra time because of COVID. So Katie was finally approved to donate her kidney to me in August of 2020. And we were so excited. All that was left to do was I needed a CT scan and a stress test so I could be signed off. And then her and I would get our surgery 6 weeks later. So I did both of the tests, and the CT scan came back. The doctors called and said, "We think your right kidney has a cyst that is cancerous. 70% chance it's cancer." And I thought, I'm dead. After all of this time, after all of this effort, after everything we've gone through to get Katie signed off and to get me approved and everybody ready to go, now at the last minute, here I am, and there's a cyst that could be cancerous. And I thought, that's it. I'm completely done. It's over. 2 days later, I was starting to turn a corner in the sense of feeling a little bit optimistic and feeling like, okay, maybe there's a chance here that's not. They only said 70%. There's still a 30% chance it's not. And I'd started to kind of talk myself out of that. And the heart doctor called, the cardiologist called and said, from the stress test results that had come back, my heart was at 15%. And I thought, for sure, I'm dead. I thought, absolutely for sure, it's over. If There is a God, Allah, Buddha, the universe, source creator, whatever you call the higher power. It is telling me that I am not meant to be here. And in that moment was when I gave up. Of course, I didn't tell anybody, but inside of myself, I thought, that's it. I'm destined to die. And at the time, I wasn't religious. I believed in God. I was born into a Catholic family, but I wasn't going to church every, Sunday. I wasn't necessarily praying all the time. I didn't consider myself as religious. Um, I have an aunt that's a Catholic nun, and thank goodness, because in that moment I thought, okay, well, if this is it, I better get ready to die. And just in case everything is real, let me call my aunt and figure out what I'm supposed to do. And I called her and I said, I'm really, really scared that I'm going to die. And she said, yeah, you might. And I thought, well, what kind of a Catholic nun are you? You're supposed to help me. And she said, yeah, you might die. Either way, you're taken care of. So the real question is, what are you going to do with the time that you have on earth? And from that point, that's what I started to focus on. At the same time, I called my best friend, Rachel, who she said, listen, this is what's going to happen. She said, you are going to get your kidney tested and get your kidney removed, and they're going to tell us that it's not cancerous, and that's going to happen at Thanksgiving as a gift to the universe. And then as a return from the universe, you're going to get your heart and kidney at Christmas, and it's going to be a Christmas miracle, and we're going to make a Christmas movie because this movie is Hallmark. It's such a Hallmark moment. It's a Christmas miracle. It's all going to happen exactly as it sounds, and it's going to be amazing. At the time, the movie that I was in was Final Destination. You know, the movie where the person survives the car accident, but then the microwave blows up and death is at their door. And I thought that was the movie that I was in. And I thought, well, Rachel's Hallmark movie sounds way better. I'm going to be in her movie. So I called the cardiologist and I said, listen, we're making a movie. It's a Christmas miracle. So it's a Hallmark movie. We need a Christmas miracle. And we need to move this whole thing forward because it's Christmas. At the time, by this time, it was early November. And the doctor said, well, it doesn't really work like that. But if anyone can do it, you can. And he said, the list of clearances normally takes 3 to 6 months to just get the clearances done to get you on the heart and kidney transplant list. And I thought, okay, let's do it. So we moved into mass action, and I took the list and I made all kinds of appointments. There was me and a couple of others that were helping me. We were finding doctors and specialists. And as you can imagine, the flurry of activity right before Christmas with doctors' offices closing and things like that. And it was nothing short of a series of miracles that we even got appointments and got me in and got me cleared in time. By this point, I'd already had the kidney surgery to get my kidney removed, and it happened to be around Thanksgiving. And so I thought, okay, Rachel's prophecy is coming true. Like maybe we are making a movie. And so I had this renewed sense of life force in me that gave me hope. I had thousands of people praying for me as I went into the hospital. And I was admitted on December 23rd. And they put me on the kidney and heart transplant list on Christmas Eve. And the doctor said, we've done everything we can. You've done an amazing job of getting to this point. You have moved with lightning speed in getting all of your clearances done. Now we wait. And he said, it's not going to be a Christmas miracle because at the level that we've put you on the transplant list based on how sick you are, it's going to be a couple of months. So it's probably going to be February. You'll be in hospital until then. But he said, you can still make a Christmas movie. It's Hollywood. We can just make it up, and we can make it based loosely on facts. And I said, absolutely not. This has to be a Christmas movie. No one's going to watch the movie when they find out that it actually happened in February. So this has to be legit. It has to happen at Christmas. It's going to happen now. And he said, well, all we can do is pray. And at that moment, I let go. I really decided, you know what? I've done everything humanly possible. And if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. But I knew that I was going to get this heart and kidney. I don't know why. I felt it. And I went to sleep that night thinking, tomorrow at Christmas, I am just going to have fun with the nurses. I'm going to let go completely. I'm going to have an amazing time with them. If we all have to be stuck in this hospital at Christmas, we're going to make it fun. And that's what I did. We were just people together at Christmas that happened to be in a hospital, and they happened to be working, and I happened to be sick. But at the time on that day, we exchanged life stories. We talked about relationships and dating and marriages and kids and friends and life problems and life successes. And we just shared with each other the gift of just being with each other. Christmas, the night of Christmas came around, and it was 10 p.m. And the nurses came in and they said, we're still praying for a Christmas miracle. The whole floor is praying. And they said, but you have to go to sleep. And they said, it's still Christmas, so it's fine. It can still happen. But let's get you ready to go to bed. And I said, yeah, you're right. It was around 10 p.m. And as I leaned back to go to sleep, the phone rang. And it was my transplant coordinator, Nora, sharing that they had found a heart and a kidney for me. And we cheered so loud. And then there was this deep-rooted silence where it was like, oh my gosh, this prayer stuff really worked. Like the higher powers were listening. This is a real Christmas miracle. It never happens that a heart and kidney comes in one day. Like, this is amazing. And the next day, the doctors came in to celebrate. The nurses had got me ready. They said, listen, you're our Christmas miracle. They're going to want to take so many pictures of you after surgery. Let's make sure you look great. They were braiding my hair. And it was just so fun. Who has fun going to surgery, right? Especially that kind of major surgery. But they made it so fun. We were so excited, and everybody was celebrating, because I think after the year that we had had of COVID, we couldn't be with our families. No one could be in the hospital with me. I'm sitting there by myself with the nurses that were covered head to toe in protective gear. We couldn't hug. We couldn't shake hands. We couldn't do anything interpersonal at all at a time where people just wanted some hope. This felt like a reason, small, major reason to celebrate. Small in the scheme of the world of what was going on with, billions of people that we'd gone through. Major in the sense of this being such a miracle at the same time. So we were celebrating, and as the doctors came in to cheer me on, and a couple of hours before surgery, they were ready to go, and they said, we're going to come back and get you in a few. We're so excited. As they're standing there, I flatlined. And that's when it became a real miracle, that my heart was set to stop the next day. And it was then that they realized, it was almost like a flashback, that they realized that every decision that we had made up until that point had come into sharp focus. When I flatlined, I had what culture calls an NDE, which is a near-death experience. I call it a death experience because I was clear that I was dead. And I remember falling asleep and then being in this infinite blackness. The closest I've come to being able to have someone experience it is when you close your eyes, but you're looking through your eyelids, like you're looking into the blackness. And it's not darkness, but it's like it's a version of blackness, like an infinite blackness. And I thought, oh my gosh, where am I? And I was looking around and trying to figure it out. And then it hit me and I was like, oh. And as I had that realization, I was standing suddenly in front of a hallway with a light and God and Jesus standing in front of me. And I just knew where I was. Jesus was in the form of a man, a person, so I could make out all of his features and I could recognize him in a mall right now if I saw him. And God was a black shadow that looked like the shape of a man, but in a black shadow. And I instantly got that God was in a black shadow, the shape of a man, so that I could be with what was happening, as opposed to me like talking to a cloud or something where I would be a bit discombobulated. It was like for me that he was appearing in a form that I could ingest. And as I was standing there, this huge wave of compassion hit me, as if you took all of the compassion in the entire world and times it by 10,000. It washed over my entire being, and I just knew where I was. And in that moment, God said, you are to start a church with your best friend, all denomination, not with the intention to convert, but to demonstrate that we are all united simply because we are religious. I never intended religion to divide, only to unite. And I said, okay. And then as I said, okay, I came back through the phases. I came back into the infinite blackness. And then suddenly I could feel someone trying to wake me up from my sleep. And I was thinking, who is trying to wake me up? Like, what do they want? And I could feel like that kind of feeling. And as I came to, it was actually chest compressions. So it was this motion, and the nurse was doing chest compressions. And I opened my eyes and said, Margaret, relax. And I moved the nurse off me and I sat up and I said, guys, relax. I just took a little nap. And all you could see were 3 doctors, 2 nurses, 5 sets of eyeballs staring at me through masks in shock. And the surgeon said, take her to the OR right now. And that's when everything started to move. They raced me to the OR. They immediately opened me up, kept my heart beating manually while my other heart was in a helicopter, still coming. It wasn't there yet. They were just hoping that when it got there, everything was good with it. It fit. Everything was working as it was when it left the other hospital. And when it arrived, they transplanted the heart. It started beating immediately. My kidney came 14 hours later, and I was under for about 36 hours. And when I woke up, I had a heart and a kidney, and I was walking 3 days later. And every time I tell the story, every time I share it, I get present again to how many people were involved in having me be able to be here with you today. Thank you for allowing me to share what happened.
I'm I'm in the background with my tissue, and I found myself leaning in, I don't know why. I've got my headphones on and everything, but I was just mesmerized by your story. Oh my God. And the whole idea of a Hallmark movie at Christmas, they really should have one with
Right.
this. They I mean, this could be the start of something. Not that I am certainly going to vote for that, because how encouraging. And I loved. I'm going to go back to the beginning, if you don't mind, when about your aunt who's the nun.
Yes.
What a great vibe for her. Yes, you might die, but it's what you're going to do right now. I just love the way she was so fun. And then your reaction saying, "Hey, I wasn't in store for that." Lighten up, none.
Right? The wrong person to call if you're scared of dying. Her faith is beyond, right? She's devoted her entire life. The wrong person to call, or the
I love
perfect
that.
person to call, right? Like she really,
Mhm.
in that moment, I said to her, "Can we start Bible study every Saturday?" And
Oh,
like a true Catholic nun, she said, "Yes, darling, and Wednesdays." And I thought,
I
dang, now I've got to do 2 Bible studies a week. Um,
love that.
and where we started was I said to her, and I feel like this is missed often, so I'm compelled to bring it up. I said to her, I feel like this is punishment for me because I didn't do my communion. I refused to do my communion when I was 8. And, I have lived a
Sure.
normal life. I've done things, I haven't done things. There's things that I was supposed to do that I didn't do, all
Mhm.
this stuff. And I said, I feel like I messed up along the way and this is
Mm.
happening. And I know that's how many people feel. And her words still ring true for me. It completely changed my entire perspective. Where she started laughing and she said, "God doesn't do anything because of you." And I was like, "Oh." She was like, "He's the almighty creator. He doesn't do anything because of you." She started laughing. And
Gosh.
isn't that profound? And
Yeah.
I really thought, gosh, who do I think I am that my actions dictate what God's going to do?
Right.
And
Right.
she said, he's not parental. I know we talk about him like God is the father, but he's not parental
Hmm.
because he's not human. He created humans. He's not human. We have
Right.
labels like he, father, because we are human and we need that, right? Like we need to anchor into something to be able to talk about it. But
Mhm.
she was saying like it's a creator. He created humans, right?
Wow.
So whatever God does or doesn't do is beyond our understanding. And us spending time trying to understand why God does what he does is an empty carriage because you will never understand it because you're human.
Yeah.
You can try, you can make assumptions, you can hypothesize, but you will never understand it because you're human and he is not.
Mm.
And I thought, wow. And then she said, it sounds like you might need to develop a brand new relationship with God. So let's start there. And
Wow.
she gave me Psalm 139,
Hmm.
which is all about God knows everything there is to know about you, all of your wants, all of your desires, all of your hopes, all of your dreams. He instilled them in you. He knitted you in your mother's womb and fearfully and divinely made. And I thought, if I really take that on, then he knows I want to live. He knows
Mhm.
I want to be here. He knows I've got things to do. He knows that I haven't experienced a whole bunch of things that I know I'm supposed to. So I can rest easy and I can just focus on what there is to do. The stuff that is humanly possible, that's on me. The stuff that is in the supernatural that I can't do, That's on God.
That's
But what I can control, I'm going to control. And I got very clear that I control a lot more than the external forces would have you think.
Mm-hmm.
The no's, the people who decline things, the no, we're closed right now, we can't. That stuff we control.
Yeah.
And I got really, really clear on that. And that kept me alive.
That is amazing. And that is so true because no matter what you worry about, there's a handful of things you do control. The rest of it, don't worry about. Don't add your worry to it. It's hard to remember that because a lot of us were raised that it just by witnessing our parents, grandparents, and friends, and that if you worry about something hard enough, everything's going to be fine. It's like I'll go through the sleepless nights and I won't eat for 3 days because I'm so worried about something, and then everything's going to be fine.
Right.
And but we do have control over that. We said yes to that, right? And so, oh my gosh, there was one story I heard from Carolyn Mays. She's a philosopher teacher, and I was at a seminar with her, and she had a migraine. Now, we had paid for 2 days of teaching with Carolyn Mays, and the audience was there. Everyone was there. She had a migraine that she couldn't even see through. So she put a bandana around her head, so her temple and something here at the temples to keep them pushed in. And she went through that way. And she told a story. I was impressed with that. So now that if I have the least bit of cough, I can't do it. Right? And I remember Carolyn May. So we learned through witnessing, but she also said she had a client that came in and said, I got fired from work, came home early to an empty house. Even the dog was gone. Everything was out. My wife had left me. I found out she didn't pay the mortgage or any of the bills, so I had to bankrupt. And Carolyn Mace looked at him and took it all in and said, I smell God here. That's when life really puts you in a certain situation and say, okay, because everyone around him was a witness and learned through him, just like I am learning through you, and then Carolyn Mace. I learned through her, putting that bandana around her, and then continued on with the weekend of lecture, and you having such grace. I would like to talk, if you don't mind, about Rachel. What was it about her? Was she always like a jokester, or was she all Pollyanna, or was she spiritually based, or who was Rachel?
Rachel was sunlight walking. She radiated an energy that was very positive. And she was very big on energy. That's why we really got along. The two of us actually met on a spiritual retreat in Bali.
Oh, wonderful.
2 weeks before my kidneys failed.
Oh, wow.
So she was with me the entire time of me being sick, literally the entire time. And she was the kind of person that if you called her with a problem, she could be with it. Any mood I was in, the range of moods I was in, she would just be completely fine, happy with however I was, totally gracious.
Wow.
Just had the ability to just sit with me and be with me. And she lived in Florida. I was here in California. So we were opposite coasts, but never far away. And completely selfless. Even in the moments where she was really sick, I felt like her first priority.
Wow.
She had a way of having other people have hope just because of her attitude and her brightness.
Mm.
Her goal in life was to show and be the example to other people that they could turn the light on inside themselves at any given point. And
I
she was
love
right.
I just love that. Oh my goodness. So when you were first describing her as always being a ray of sunshine, I thought, well, that would get annoying if, you have a problem and all they say is, well, just look on the bright side. That's at first what I thought you were saying, but to have someone meet you where you are, no matter what, and you were flipping from emotion to emotion. I know I would be just with a diagnosis. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy, I philosophical, I'm all of this stuff. And to have a friend like that is pretty amazing. Wow, wow,
Very
wow.
amazing. And she was super protective over me. Super, super protective. Like I wasn't allowed to have a bad day put on me by anyone else. It was truly, if I felt like having a bad day, it was because I felt like it, but she would
Right.
have none of it from anyone else.
Wow.
Yeah, she was pretty amazing.
Wow. So now a little more. Now, Katie, the original kidney donor, you got so sick that story ended, right?
Yeah, she wasn't able to donate because at that time I needed a heart and a kidney then. So it had to come from a deceased donor.
Serious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it's
Imagine it's oh, yeah, with that. Yeah, you really need a heart to keep things going. But isn't it interesting? And I know everyone's freaking out about this. I know my eyes are going all over the place because I'm visualizing myself in that scenario. And this, what needed to happen at a certain time to have you on a certain list. And my sense is, tell me if I'm wrong, my sense is as soon as you flatlined, that doctor went and put you to the top of the list. Had to have.
So I was already on the list. Like they put me on the list on Christmas Eve.
Right.
And then that's when I got the heart and kidney the next day on Christmas. And I flatlined after I'd already had the heart and kidney and was going into surgery.
I see. I see. So he had done all that work beforehand. Wow.
Yeah, but it was
Amazing.
like, it was the fact that to get on the heart and kidney transplant list is a bunch of clearances. And those clearances normally take 3 months, 6 months. You have to see probably 25 specialists
Wow.
to get that done. And I did it in about a week and a half. To see 25 specialists in a week and a half, 2 weeks, even 2 months is miraculous, let alone in the month of December where, everyone's
Yeah.
claim all their insurances and do all the testing before the end of the year. And there's all of this activity. They're closing to go on vacation, like all this stuff. So that was the miracle, was the process to get on the list, which the doctors the surgeons don't have any control over because it depends on me getting all the clearances. I had to get x-rays and teeth checked and mammograms and anyone who's booked a mammogram knows it's not for 3 months or something, right? So
Right.
it was a whole
Wow.
process, and that was really the miraculous part. But because I could have waited, it was just because Rachel said we're making a Christmas movie that I sped up getting my clearances so that I could be ready to even get on a list before Christmas.
Amazing.
So that and then to have my heart stop on the 26th made us realize that we'd had this premonition, because
Right.
otherwise I was set to die on that day.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's amazing.
it became a real miracle. That's when it was sort of a flashback of like realizing that we'd taken all these steps preemptively for something as silly as let's make a movie. But that was the fun context. The underpinning was we had a feeling that we couldn't wait, and no
Yeah.
one could really articulate it per se, except for to take those actions quickly.
Wow. Tell us what's going on with Rachel now.
So the plot to the movie is that Rachel actually got sick in March of 2022, last year. And she passed in December of last year from colon cancer.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
It has given me a year of reflection around
gosh.
why me and not her, right?
Yeah.
Her. How did I get involved?
Yeah.
She didn't. She was way better than me. She said hello to everybody in the grocery store. You know, I'm in and out. I'm not talking to anybody. It was like she would feed every homeless person ever. You know, like she was that for the world.
Wow.
She was that for the world. And I don't know if it's survivor's guilt or if it's more like we were two peas in a pod. Like we were supposed to do this together. You know, like me and you on this podcast, she would be sitting on the couch going, yeah, say that. No, don't say that. Say this. You know, she would be totally like, she would have done my makeup and my hair and be cheering me on. And like we were supposed to be doing this together.
Wow.
So it's interesting. I think it's interesting because it immediately had me go back to, while I can spend years thinking about why would God do this, I will never understand it. It's beyond my understanding. That's where real faith kicks in.
Yeah.
To know that there is a reason, and I don't know what it is. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. If I was in charge and the source creator of the world, I wouldn't have made that decision, but that's me, right? There is a reason.
Yeah. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. But it is beyond my understanding. And it's out of the last few years when I thought that my test of faith would be with my own life on the line. I never knew that there was another level to that. I thought that was it, right? That was the level. The other level of that test of faith is pairing up why I lived when somebody else didn't. And having to have faith and continue to make a difference and to be helping people and supporting others when having that question be open-ended and knowing that I would never have an answer.
Yeah.
That's the real test of faith to me.
That's right.
Continuing to stay in love with life, in love with being human, in love with circumstances, right? Continuing to have that kind of love for who we are as human beings and the human experience. That's the real
amazing. That's amazing. Now, Shana, sometimes people come back from an experience like yours with extra abilities. Did you find yourself different?
So, when I was very young, I discovered that I was able to see more than the naked eye. And I say that purposefully in the sense of I never knew what it was. But I felt connected to the world a little bit differently than the people around me. than my peers growing up. As I became an adult and had my career in marketing, they called it like a special touch where I could figure out why a message or a campaign or something like that was going to land, and I could never know why. I was just like, I just feel like we got to go in this direction. Like, I don't know why. It sounds crazy. It doesn't make any sense, but it's this. And a room full of people would go, okay, I mean, I guess it makes no sense, but all right. And we would just take, we would take something, and I just go, oh, you just trust me on this. But I could never put words to it. And the other thing that I would experience, and this is before, I would experience the feeling of walking into a room and immediately being like, nope, can't stand next to that person. And then I would look somewhere else and I would get a whole download of a person. Like, oh, this lady's going through a divorce, and she's and I'd go, oh my gosh, like, how am I so judgmental? Like, wait, what in the world? I thought it was my own judgment of like I was making
your own imagination or something.
Yeah,
You thought it was your imagination. Oh my gosh.
over people, and I'd feel bad, and I'd stop myself in my thoughts. I've been like stop assuming that you know this lady just because you've seen her one time.
Right.
What I came to know is that was very much of a clairvoyant ability. And I discovered it in one conversation one day with a friend in a party where we hadn't seen each other in a long time. And I was like, oh, how about this and this? And she was like, I didn't tell anybody that. And so it was like, I was like, what? I swear you must have posted it somewhere. Like, was that moment.
Wow.
So that I've always been attuned a little more than most. And I've always believed that there is a higher power. Synchronicities I've believed in, signs I've believed in,
me too.
that kind of thing. So after, now I am able to see people from the other side. I felt like me and my donor, she was 29 and she died on Christmas Day, 2020. My donor has always felt after that like Oprah and Gail, where I'm Oprah in the studio and she's Gail on location. That
serious. So she's with you. I mean, literally.
It felt like that.
Well,
For sure.
literal.
And then with Rachel, it feels different than my donor, funny enough. With Rachel, I feel a oversight. I feel like an oversight. Like I feel her blanket of like protection, very similar to how it was when she was alive with us. So
she's your advocate. She's your advocate.
Yeah. And so I now have messages that come through for people. I have feelings, premonitions, if you will. You can't even pay me to go somewhere where it doesn't feel right. It's just not happening. Wow. Sometimes it's too noisy for me to be in a lot of crowds, with a lot of people.
Yes.
It's overwhelming. So it's definitely a sensitivity to energy. And then I did a podcast with someone on it. I've never looked up NDEs or symptoms or anything like that. But that person said light sensitivity was something, and I've definitely experienced that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, sensory, heightened sensories, like things seem louder or the brighter or, that kind of thing. I didn't know that was one of the things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I definitely hear God louder. Like we have conversations, and it's tangible for me. I hear the answers come like me and you having a conversation.
Wow. What people would do to be able to experience that just once.
Right. And it's not lost on me whenever I feel anxious or scared. I immediately have a huge sense of compassion, because to think I've stood in front of God and Jesus, he literally gave me what he created me for, and I still get scared. I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
imagine those that aren't connected, or,
Mm.
you know, have trouble connecting, I should say. It's not that they're not, but they have trouble connecting. I
Mhm.
can't even imagine how hard that is, especially during these last couple of years.
Yes. How do you live your life, and what are your goals? I have no idea. Do you use your psychic gifts or your God-given gifts to serve others directly, like a business, or is it your church, or is it marketing? I don't know exactly what you do, but I do know that my audience, especially me, want to support you in your success. So if you have something that you would like us to shine the light on, we'd love to know what it is.
Thank you. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. It's such a gift.
Mm.
The first thing I did was I started the church,
Okay.
and it's a church that's not a church, not a traditional church anyway. First off, it's led by me, who I am completely normal. You'll even
Yes, you.
you'll
Yes, you are.
yeah, but you'll even catch me saying curse words once in a while, right? Like
Right on.
I'm human. I'm a human being. I'm
Right.
definitely a human being. Um, and so that has started. The second one is I then looked at, from my experience in saving my own life, there was a way in which I went about that the doctors said was very profound. They said to watch was like they wished their patients would get exposure to that, because so many more people would feel empowered going through the medical system.
Right.
So the second thing that I've started is supporting people who need help in understanding how to pick a doctor, for example. There is a way. There is definitely a way to pick a doctor.
Really?
I've interviewed them. I've like emotional intelligence at the top of my list. There's a way to partner. There's a way to speak. There's a way to actually engage with a doctor to get your outcomes
Mm.
close to your outcomes as you can. There's a way. You should have seen my hospital room. It was like a fancy dorm room. I had custom seats that I brought in. I had a diffuser, crystals everywhere. Like it, there's a way. There's a way that
Mhm.
you can do this that makes it a little bit easier. So I'm
Right.
very passionate about helping people who find themselves in illness or in sickness
Mm.
that need someone to say, you've got this. Everyone tells us to advocate for ourselves. Nobody tells us how, literally. Like, tell me the questions to ask, because
Right.
I'm in shock. I've gotten this news. I don't know what to
Mhm.
do. And I've got no clue what the doctor just told me. And yet I have to make life-saving decisions.
Ah,
Right. So
yeah.
that's the second part. And then the third part is I have an extenuous amount of marketing experience that I have been lucky enough to work with companies like AT&T, Wells Fargo,
Mm.
um, uh,
Wow.
Activision Video Games, Warner Brothers, lots of major brands that everyone would know, household names.
Wow.
And now what I'm really passionate about is supporting faith-based founders, supporting um, supporting people who women owners, supporting
Yes.
immigrants, minorities who have started their own businesses and don't necessarily get access to that kind of business consulting and marketing experience.
Right.
And I have a group of people that have similar experience that I do, that all are passionate about the same thing. We want to use our experience to
Mhm.
support people who have got skin in the game. They've put their mortgages on the line. They've got
Right.
businesses that they've built from scratch that are supposed to be family legacies that they're working towards. That's what we're passionate about. And there's no one too small or too big. It really is about working with great people who are, good citizens of the world. They want to do good things. And in any belief system, all belief systems are welcome. I'm very much about the values of selflessness and contribution, but also about those who recognize that sometimes taking care of you, if that's the only thing that you have, means that that's your contribution to the world, that you're taking care of you and getting yourself set up. So that's what I do now, is those three aspects in helping people in spirituality, helping those that find themselves in illness, that they need hope or faith or actual practical support, and then those that have their own businesses that they've put skin in the game. And quite often what I've been finding this year is that it'll be the same person. They've opened their own business. They've worked to the bone, gotten themselves sick from not sleeping properly and having to grind it out. Now their business is at risk and they've got to figure out a way forward.
Right.
So I do have my website, which has all of the aspects on it. And that's the easiest way, which is shanapereira.com.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, super easy. I'll try and keep it simple.
Thank you. So many times people say the light in the dark with rainbow sprinkles.com. Or some, I like it. I did the same thing. DebraZachau.com. Done.
And that's a hot tip. It's definitely a hot tip. Everybody should own the URL of their first and last name.
First and last
name.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't get it.
Any last words you would like to say to the audience?
That the last thing I'd like to impart is there's so many of you right now that are feeling stuck, lost, confused, concerned, worried, going through something, right?
Yeah.
There are two questions that I think make the world of difference. And those questions are, how can I support you? Even when you're feeling depleted, to look up and ask the question to someone else, how can I support you? And also ask it in combination with, who do you know that can help me? And I think if us as a society in the world asked those two questions consistently, we would all be taken care of, because everything can be solved in community. Everything can be solved as a group.
That's a wonderful message. So the message is, how can I support you? And who do you know that can support me? Did I hear that right? I never thought of that, the reciprocity of that. That's pretty. But I want to wish you all the best. I'm going to have everything in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, think about this message from a real miracle, a person who had a Christmas miracle and amazing turn of events. If that doesn't give you faith in the afterlife and that we're all going to be just fine, I don't know what will. But we'll keep on making some of these videos so we can stay in touch and form the community that Shana is encouraging us to do. And Shana, God bless you. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us and tell everybody your beautiful story. You're so beautiful.
Thank you so much for having me.